Hey, what is going on, guys? This is Jake at That Fit Friend, and today I'm reviewing the Total from Adidas. So I have been excited about this model for two key reasons. Number one, I feel like the market has been lacking a really good zero drop shoe that isn't a barefoot shoe designed specifically for weight training. Number two, this model was built with the help of Sam Locke. He is an Olympian, a strength coach, and he works with some seriously strong athletes. So it's cool getting to know the mind behind this model because it helps shed context into why the shoe was built the way it was. So three pros that I have with this model is number one, honestly, this is just a really good shoe for weight training, especially if you like zero drop shoes. So as opposed to reaching for something like a Converse or a Vans that isn't necessarily designed for weight training that has a fairly high stack height, or a barefoot shoe which is very specific in nature in regard to its fit and feel, this model kind of walks in between all of those shoes. It has a relatively low stack height, a nice stable base, and it gives you a nice wide forefoot. So it kind of ties the elements of all these things together, but really dials in its performance for weight training. So it's not just a shoe designed for deadlifts like a deadlift shoe. It can be used for a little bit of everything with a lot of benefit. The second reason why I like this shoe is the width of the forefoot and the midfoot strap. So this model has an anatomical last. So we have a nice wide forefoot here to replicate how the foot is shaped. Honestly, I have a neutral width foot and I have ample room in this toe box, and I had to size down a half size in this model. And with this midfoot strap here, you get a nice additional level of security. So whether you are doing sumo deadlifts, conventional deadlifts, lunges, whatever it might be, this strap is nice for just providing you with a little bit of additional midfoot security if you want it. You also don't even have to use it if you want to have a little bit less security. So it's nice having that variability in this model. And if you really want to lock that foot down, the midfoot strap is great for doing so. The third pro that I have with this model is the outsole and its tread patterning. So with this shoe, you have a diamond-like tread. It grips a lot of different surfaces really well. So in the context of lifting, if you're lifting on rubber gym floors, wooden platforms, or if you're competing and you're lifting on something like carpet and powerlifting, the shoe should give you plenty of grip, and you get a nice level of arch support here on the medial side. So if you are somebody who is really worried about having a shoe with nice grip when you're really pushing the floor away or driving into that floor, this model does a pretty good job at tackling that ask. Plus, you can do stuff like sled pushes and whatnot in the shoe and have plenty of grip. But now let's talk about one con that I have with this model. So when it comes to cons in the Total, I haven't found a lot to dislike about this shoe. Honestly, I could only see really one thing bothering other lifters and athletes with this shoe, and that's just lacking the understanding of how to use this shoe. So I think if you're somebody who is looking into training shoes and shoes for lifting, and you also plan to do like hit and cross training in your shoes, this is obviously not going to be the best model for you. This shoe is going to be best served for dedicated strength work and for being a little bit more specific with your lifting. So overall, there's not a lot to dislike with the shoe in regard to its overall construction. The only thing that I could see being an issue is just not understanding exactly how to use this shoe and why you're investing in them. So when it comes to the performance of the Total, I'm only going to be talking about one section, and that is lifting. So 5 reasons why I like this model for lifting is number one, I like the overall width of this shoe. It has a nice anatomical shape. So as opposed to using something like a Vans and Converse that isn't necessarily designed for training, this shoe's width gives you plenty of room to splay the toes, and you don't necessarily have to go to a barefoot shoe to get that width, which I personally like because I don't always like wearing barefoot shoes for my training. So if you are somebody who is similar, who wants a little bit more cushion under the foot for training, this can be a really good option to look into if you're looking for width in the forefoot. The second reason why I like this model is the overall outsole traction, and I mentioned this in my pros, but the traction on this shoe I think does a really good job on a lot of different surfaces. So whether you're being a little bit more static or dynamic with your weight training, this model should work pretty well. You can use them for things like sled pushes and whatnot, and they should give you plenty of grip whether you're training on turf, wooden platforms, once again, rubber gym floors, or even carpet and you're competing in a powerlifting meet. The third reason why I like this model is the midfoot strap. So with this midfoot strap, you don't have a ton of overhang, which is nice, which is a good touch there in regard to construction. So you can really crank them tight, and you'll have plenty of Velcro, I think, to really pull them tight, but also not have the strap flopping around. But then also, I just like that you have the variability of using it or not using it. So you can use it for a little bit of additional midfoot support and security if you want, but you don't necessarily need to use it if that is something that you're not wanting. The fourth reason why I like this model is the overall stack height. So in regard to deadlifting specifically, we want to basically limit as much material that separates the foot from the floor. This is going to be better for working through less range of motion when we're really trying to optimize and dial in our mechanics. With this shoe, you can take out the insole and get even closer to the ground if you want, but overall the stack height sits pretty low. So I think most folks will find that they work plenty fine for deadlifts, and they're really good for dialing in that specific realm of training. The fifth reason why I like the shoe is just the overall upper construction. So the upper through the midfoot and forefoot, it breathes pretty well. We have a nice reinforced toe guard here, and then back here on the heel, we have a nice padded collar that helps lock that foot down. So whether you are squatting, or let's say you're lifting on a wedge and you're going through like a great degree of dorsiflexion, I don't think heel slip is going to be an issue in this model. And overall, I think the upper just works really well with the boot construction of the shoe, giving it like this nice, well-rounded fit and feel for weight training. So now let's answer the question, who should invest in the Total from Adidas? Honestly, I feel like lifters from all walks of life who have a goal to build their strength, power, etc. could benefit with this model, and they're not just limited to strength athletes. Unlike a deadlift shoe that is super specific to one movement and like what kind of strength sports in particular, this model I think can have a lot more carryover for a wider range of athletes. So if you do want a zero drop shoe with a lower stack height, some midfoot security, and a nice stable base to train with, the Total can be a really good option to explore. When chatting on the sizing and fit in the Total, it's tough because I went down a half size and I still have a fair amount of room at the end of my toe box. So I think actually going down a half size will be safe for most lifters and athletes. The length in this model runs pretty long, and because we have a wider forefoot, I don't think sizing down is going to cause a width issue for most folks. Even when sizing down a half size, I have adequate width in this shoe. So I do think sizing down a half size is a safe call for folks. However, if you have like a super notably wide foot, or if you're constantly running into the end of your toe box in your normal true to size, then going true to size in this shoe could be safe. But again, I think for most lifters and athletes, sizing down a half size is the call in this model. So when it comes to price for the Total from Adidas, you can expect to pay around $100 USD. Now, I bought mine from a European site and paid an arm and a leg for shipping, so I ended up paying around 150 USD for these because I wanted them so dang bad. But I believe for US markets, you can expect to pay around $100 USD, which honestly, I feel like is pretty fair for the shoe. If you're only wearing them for training, I think you'll get a lot out of them. And since they are super niche with the construction and the performance asks of this model, I think if they resonate with what you like in a shoe, then that price point could easily be justified. So to discuss the weight, heel to toe drop, and insole in this model, for my size 9.5 model, we have a weight of 10.8 ounces. The heel to toe drop in this shoe is 0 millimeters, and it does have a thin foam removable insole, so you can take this out, and if you want to get closer to the ground, you could definitely train without that insole, and the internal construction of the shoe is finished in regard to like being a little bit more smooth in nature versus super rigid. All right, now let's cover the construction of the Total. Looking at the toe up here, we have a synthetic layer that wraps the entirety of the toe box. I like this for both durability, but also giving you a little bit of extra security when really driving into the forefoot of the shoe. Looking at the upper construction, we have a textile upper. It is built with 50% of recycled content. I personally love that. And then we also have some Adidas branding here on the lateral side. No Adidas branding here on the medial side, but we do have these synthetic layers that wrap up the medial side of this shoe. Looking at the heel, we have a slightly more rigid cut back here, and then we also have that padding around the top of the boot. That helps provide you with additional heel support and security in the shoe, which I personally really like. We have an external heel tab back here with some Total branding there. Looking at the midfoot, we have this Velcro strap that goes across the midfoot, strength in numbers branding right here, which I like. 6 eyelets that wrap up with a 7th back here for lace lock. We also have a loop on this tongue, and then the tongue itself does have some Adidas branding. It's pretty light in nature. Honestly, I haven't had any issues with this tongue rolling because of the loop, and it is gusseted. So overall, I do like the tongue construction. With the strap here, I think most folks will be able to have plenty of Velcro realty to really tighten this down. So even if you have a higher arch, honestly, when you're cranking the shoe down, I don't think you're gonna have an issue with the strap hanging over or not giving you enough grip to really lock that shoe down. Looking at the sole construction, we have a rubber sole throughout. On the bottom of the outsole here, we have a diamond tread patterning with some Adidas branding in the middle. And then once again, we do have that more anatomical last, so the forefoot is pretty wide in this shoe. And then looking at the insole, once again, the insole is removable in this model. So we have this thin foam removable insole, and the internal portion of the shoe does have a smoother texture. So this model is not super uncomfortable to train in if you do want to take that insole out and get closer to the ground. But if you have additional questions on the construction of the Total, drop a comment down below. All right guys, that wraps up my review of the Total from Adidas. Honestly, there isn't a lot to dislike about the shoe. I feel like this model is also tackling a very niche ask that we've been lacking on the market. If you have any questions about this shoe, drop a comment down below or reach out to me personally, whichever you prefer. And as always guys, drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel. I'll see you in the next one.